Alright, I've been in a kind of a stonefly tying mood, so I'm going to tie a woven stone, and I'm starting off with a size 8 streamer hook with a 5/32 tungsten bead, and I'm going to add some weight to this. I'm going to take 5 turns of lead just to give it some additional weight, and I'm going to push that into the bead and trim off this excess section. So this is kind of a cross between a 20-incher stone and a Polish woven nymph, and the tail of the section that I'm going to tie in is going to mirror that of the of most stone flies, or a lot of stone flies, the goose biot tail. But I'm going to get started with some 140 olive thread. I'm just going to make some wraps behind the lead and up through to get that in and secure, and then I'll come back through and trim that off. Bring my thread down excuse me, to about the bend in the hook, and I'm going to put in just a slight thread ball there where I'm going to tie in my goose biot. So I'm going to use a black biot for this, and again, I like to take 2 meaty ones when I'm going to use or going to tie a fly of this size. I'm going to make sure my tail reflects it. So I'm just taking them off the stem and putting them back to back to create that V. I'm going to measure this against the hook shank to create the length of the tail I'm looking for. You can tie these in one at a time. I'm going to tie these in together, and I'm just putting them on either sides of the hook shank. Right behind the ball, I'm going to make my first wrap, and make them just a little longer and give them a pull down. So now at this point I can adjust those tail sections to make sure they sit just the way I want. You can see how that thread ball really opens them up. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to come back through and finish wrapping these tails, these butt sections, right into the fly. Then I'm going to come back and trim off the longer pieces. Careful not to cut my thread. Alright, this is going to have ribbing in it, and the rib that I'm going to use is just a fine copper wire. So I'm going to measure this, or put this in, tie it right behind that lead, and tie it down to the tail and back up. So now the Polish woven part, I'm going to take 4-strand floss, and I'm going to use 2 colors. I'm going to use a dark gray or navy. I'm not sure how well it's going to get picked up on camera, but I'm going to tie that into the top. Measure that out. So this is 4-strand floss. I'm going to use all 4 strands of both that gray or navy color, as well as the black that I'm going to use. And I'm going to designate the black to be the top part of the fly, and the gray is going to be the belly of the fly. So I'm just getting my strand tips lined up here. Again, I'll wet them so that they all stick together, and then tie that into the top. I'm going to measure that out and cut it off. And now I use 140 thread so I can start to build an underbody taper to this fly, just like you would with a woven nymph. And I'm going to tie it off just at the thorax, because I'm going to remove this while I weave. Alright, so now I'm going to start to weave the body, and I've got my 2 strands here, and I'm going to make the lighter color my belly and the darker color my back. So I'm going to take the lighter color over, the black around and behind, and just keep repeating that process. And I'm going to bring it up and stop just behind the bead head. Alright, so now I've rotated my vise back around and you can see the weave that we've done. I'm going to take and reattach my thread at this point. And so I'm going to hold both strands here at the bottom and with my same two fingers capture that thread, and I'm going to start to back my thread through the thorax section. And when I've gotten it all, I can come back and clip off the balance of that floss. Now I can take my rib material, which is this copper wire, and just start to weave it in and out of the knots. You can see what that looks like. And bring it up to my tie-in point here at my thorax. And I'm actually going to bring it back just one knot further. I'm going to helicopter that off. And tie that in. Alright, now for the wing case for this. Now it starts to look again like it's a 20-inch stone. So I'm going to take my turkey tail here. I'm going to take a half-inch section or so. I'm going to trim it off, and there's two sides to this, so the softer tips I'm going to level out. So that's going to be my tie-in. And I'm going to bring that right on top and tie that in. The tails, again, the same, or the legs rather, the same legs that I use for the 20-inch stone, which is just this a soft hackle hen. So I'll take off a section, clean out the underneath side, and start to pull those fibers back away from the tip, and the tip's going to be my tie-in point, so I can take that, tie that in right on top. I'm going to dub the thorax with a natural hair's dubbing, so I'm just going to wax the thread there. Take a pinch of my blend. And just get that thorax dubbed on. Alright, now I can bring my legs forward, and you'll see it extends past the eye. And clean up that. And I can just start to lay those back down, make one wrap on top, and that'll hold those in place. Now I can bring my wing casing back over. And make a wrap to hold that down. And I'll make a wrap underneath. Now I can clean up that top section. And I am going to put just a slight collar on this. I'm going to re-wax my thread. take another pass of dubbing here and give a couple wraps around before I whip finish behind the bead. And then I can trim that off. So again, this is a combination between a Polish woven nymph and a 20-inch stone, and that is my woven stonefly.